Welcome to the Leading Hope Podcast with Kevin Jack. Your influence will lead people somewhere, lead them towards hope. Everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.
Welcome to Leading Hope with Kevin Jack. I'm your host, VJ Williams, here with my friend and pastor, Kevin Jack. Thank you for joining us and taking time out of your day to become a better leader. Visit leadinghope.online to get updates and find out more about the Leading Hope community. We release a new episode every Wednesday, so we'd love for you to share on social media, bring others along with us, a journey of becoming a better leader. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, it would mean so much to us if you did that now. Also, post about it, rate and review. You will not believe how that gets us into the hands of so many more leaders like you. We are in our last episode of our series, Trust. Episode 43 starts today. Trust the process. Kevin, what do you got for us?
Trust the process. Hey, so this is what we're going to do today. This is our last episode for this series on trust, and the last episode, at least for right now, that we're joined by our team, which is, guys, this has been a blast to do this with you, so thanks for being a part of it. Yes, we recorded this on 3 separate instances. These are just the only articles of clothing that we own, and say in order to develop trust in your team, it is essential that the leader is committed to developing trust, but it is also essential that the whole team is on board. And if people aren't committed to the process of developing trust, it's not gonna happen. It's not going to work. And so this is what I asked our team to do. And I'm excited for what you're gonna learn. I'm excited for what I'm gonna learn. I asked our team to say, hey, would you take a second and put on the hat of coach, consultant, encourager, whatever it is, and just kind of, hey, give a call out and say, hey, this is why you should develop trust. These are some things you should be mindful of. This is why you should keep going. This is why you should make it more than a single meeting, assuming that 2 hours is gonna completely develop trust in your team. And just for you to have an opportunity to hear from them and to hear from different perspectives as we've navigated through this process of developing trust. So the conversation is going to be theirs pretty much from here on out. I'll ask some questions as I'm curious on things that I need to do better or things that I think that I can really learn from. But Keish, will you kick us off on the coaching hat of, hey, this is what you need to do, focus on developing trust?
I like that you just called me quiche in front of all of these listeners. It's affectionately a breakfast food. Thank you very much. So it's really interesting because in my journey as a pastor, I've just taken a new role. And so I have a new team, new responsibilities. And so I am starting with very little trust and building that myself. So I'm coaching myself when I say these things. But as far as someone trying to build trust within the team, I think it's really important to genuinely care well for your team. We always have so much to accomplish and so much to get done that sometimes the agenda comes before actually caring for that person. And when people know how much you care about them and feel like you really value them as a person, they're willing to help in so many more ways. And that can come from just the question of like, how are you? And taking time to listen and also appreciating them really well. Sometimes we forget to do that part, we celebrate, but there's this piece too with saying thank you. And that goes a really long way. So as a coach, I would say care well for people first, and that builds a ton of trust right away.
Yeah, and I think that's really good. I like Keisha, what you just said in that very first statement was fantastic. As you said, you started in this new ministry with very little trust. And I think that's where we all start. Like when we're jumping onto a team, trust begins at 0 for the most part, and it takes time to build that. So for trust in a team, it's going to take a lot of conversations. It's going to take a lot of time. I mean, this group right here, we've been together for quite a while in ministry years. It's kind of like dog years, right? Ministry years are, 3 years or 5 years feels like 10 or 20 years. But to develop that trust, there's a lot of risks that have to be taken along the way, because without the risk, without the, oh, am I potentially going to say something that indicts me if I'm going to be honest with, my leader or my colleague or anybody else I'm working with, I'm judging to see, okay, how are they responding to that? Because there are some places that you can work. If there's not good trust there, some of that stuff can come back to bite you. And you can share something out of, the honesty and well-meaning intentions of your heart, and then realize, oh, that's something that got used later on down the road to, basically put me on the path of demise. So, you've got to have that commitment as an entire team to say, hey, we are going to be a team that takes risks because we know that the trust that's going to be developed is going to be worth in the long run. And then, when somebody's coming to you with something, they're taking a lot of risk. So, it's up to us to really value each other appropriately. And say, hey, I'm not going to use that to throw back at you later, but that's going to allow us to have these really honest conversations that down the road, it's going to make our team so much better, because we're not going to be questioning each other's motives. We're not going to be looking for, what's the hidden motive behind what this person is doing right here. So there's always a healthy risk that needs to be taken there, and you have to give it enough time to be able to see, hey, number one, this stuff's not going to come back to bite me. Number two, I know these are people that have my back because they truly understand the intentions of my heart.
Yeah. Dusty, you spoke about everyone has to be committed to it and committed to taking that risk. But I also think that it's important to recognize, as a person who might be leading people through this, that some people just aren't going to be committed to it. I remember when we read the 5 dysfunctions of a team, there's this one chapter where it ended with but that was the last time that whole group of people would be together, and everybody was like, what's happening? But that's been true for us too. We started this process over 3.5 years ago, and we've lost team members along the way for various reasons. Some of it was just because it was their time to move on. Some of it was because they couldn't continue with the work of building trust. And I think there's certainly a level of that, hey, if you're losing mass amounts of people while you're going through this process, that's probably you. You probably need to look at the way that you're going through it. But every once in a while, there will just be people who aren't committed to it. And you have to be willing to let them go, whether that is by force or by their own choice. That's something we're kind of working through right now as we're building the Immigration Center, right? Is hey, we're going through this process of building trust. It's not easy, it's difficult. And as those people who are in leadership, determining, hey, is this me? Is it something that I'm doing that's not working out? Or is it just that this person is not ready and committed to it yet? And I say yet because for some people, they can get to that point. And for other people, they just won't. And so that's a process of discernment that takes time and that takes wisdom. And that just really takes a lot of self-reflection on the part of the leader, but also on the part of your team too.
I agree. I think you hit something really important there, Alyssa, especially around the commitment pieces. We're not responsible for the level of commitment of someone else that's not ready to move into that position yet. And here's the thing that I found, especially with the online team, is some people don't have the same level of commitment as them, and that's perfectly fine, right? It's my job to figure out how to give value to make people want to move into that next level of commitment. One of those things is you don't have to I don't trust, so the people that haven't moved into the next level of commitment, I don't trust those people less. I just trust the other people that have the more responsibilities more. That's the difference. I don't trust them any less. That there's no less about trust with the people that haven't moved into a next circle of commitment. I just trust the people that are at a high level leading more with doing more. That's all that is. And I think it's important that we recognize those circles and those boundaries and help people move into those next levels.
I've had that experience with several teams that I've managed, not specific to Be Hope, but putting people in a position of leadership when they weren't ready. And Kevin, you mentioned in Free Fall that you've got to put in the time and have lots of conversations. And I realized later that I didn't spend enough time talking with people before I elevated them to a leadership position. I think we want the best for people, but not everybody is able to lead in that position. And you kind of have to make some mistakes to figure that out first.
That's good.
It's good.
Hey, what else? What else? I don't know, but ask you guys best practices, key airs. Like, let's go through a lightning round. Like, hey, let's just give some quick tips here and there, back and forth. Do this, don't do this as it comes to developing trust. What do you got?
I got one. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, one of the mottos that we have all kind of adopted is clear is kind. I think Brene Brown said it first, but I think it's so true for all of our teams. Like, you have to be so clear about, one, what you're doing in the attempt to build trust, two, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, and kind of the expectations around it. I think, if you give people really clear instructions and understanding and expectations, like, they will rise to meet that, but you have to be really clear about what you're doing and how you're doing it.
That's great. For me, lightning round, love first, lead second. If I get that screwed up, then I'll screw up the entire thing.
Ooh, BJ, that's good. You've done a really good job living that out. I'm really proud of you. Good job.
Thank you for that.
Cheers. For me, it would be settle conflict quickly and, if possible, always in person, but never through an email. Sometimes I think that's just lazy leadership. So just do it quickly. The longer you wait, the worse it is. And if you can't settle it by the end of the day, there has to be a really good reason. And always do it in person, because there's too much room for interpretation if it's in an email or a text message. So.
Yeah, and I think right along those lines, like you said, I think overly communicate and always have clarifying conversations, because like where I've made mistakes and even allowing other people to step up into roles of leadership, I found that I've put them in this role and I say, all right, you got this, I'm going to empower you I'm going to stay out of it for 3 months at a time. And that's not helped a whole lot, because, the more clarifying conversation we have, we're constantly helping them to really see the clarity in the vision, and they also feel more supported. So, just constantly have those clarifying conversations, and there's no such thing as communicating too much to people that we're trying to build trust into.
That's right.
Clear is kind. It takes time. It's not going to be fast, but be committed to it. It's worth it.
Definitely.
Can I say another one? Are we only limited to one?
Go. Go.
Oh, all right. Another one is to celebrate others often. I think we learned this from Kevin, but he's always putting the spotlight on someone else. And especially as a leader, you build trust when you're not just celebrating your own victories, but you're celebrating the team around you really, really well and making them, in the spotlight. It boosts trust really quickly.
Oh, that was so kind. Thank you, Keish.
Yep.
Hey, let me ask this. And this will be, I don't know how far we'll be able to take this conversation. But for the person who's listening, who's not a leader, but who's on a team and who wants trust to be a part of it, like who wants the trust on their team to be enhanced, what would your recommendation be for them as to how they go about that? Because that's a tricky process to be like, hey, boss, this is how you're destroying the trust on our team. Hey, boss, our trust sucks. So what advice, do we say sucks on this podcast? Hey, it's my podcast. We say sucks on this podcast. There we go. I honestly thought for a second, do I need to get permission from someone?
It'd mean the world to us.
You mean so what advice would you give to someone who's on a team for how to enter in and kind of work through that process of developing trust?
I think at the beginning stage, as an employee, you would have to, before you even do anything, you're going to have to, gather some courage and just go straight to the source. I mean, we talked about it last episode, but you're going to have to gather some courage. For me, I'm going to pray about it first, but I'm going to gather the courage and I'm going to say, hey, this is the things that I'm seeing, and these are the things that I think is hurting us, because I want to trust you and you want to trust me, and I want to trust our hearts so that we're moved together. And if I don't have that initial conversation, we're never going to get to anywhere, and there's certainly not going to be trust.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think right along with that, having somebody on the team that's willing to speak up, encourage, and that I know is giving an accurate reflection on where we are. I think people that, people that don't want to lead and people that, don't need a whole lot of trust or don't have a lot of trust within themselves are the ones that aren't really going to say anything. They're never going to reflect on our current reality. They're not going to really talk about the same things that we care about, because if we're going to grow as a team, we all need to care about the same things. So when I have people on my team that come up and they start talking, hey, these are the things I see, these are the things I care about, or even saying, hey, these are the things that you're screwing up as a leader, I know those are people that I can trust because I know they have an accurate reflection of reality, and I'm relying on them to give me that, and then I can place more trust within them to help us make the whole thing better.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually gave some of this advice a couple of years ago to a friend as we were going through this process. She came to me and said, like, my work environment is toxic. What do I do about it? And was kind of sharing some of it with me. And the first thing I directed her to was culture code, because we were working through that at the time. And a lot of what I heard coming up were things from that book that we found immensely helpful. And I said, hey, first things first, like, you have to identify what the problems are in your culture. You have to be able to pinpoint, like, this is what's not working and how it could potentially change. Because just to come to a leader and say, hey, this all sucks, and not actually offer a potential for growth, like, what's your leader supposed to do with that? I think that there's value in naming what's wrong, but there's more value in being able to paint a picture of what could actually be right. So I think the first thing is being able to identify, hey, this is what's off and this is how I'd like it to be better. Like VJ said, go directly to the source. Take it to your leader. That would be the first person I would talk to. The second thing I would say is just, like, start modeling that in your interactions with people and start showing, hey, this is how it could look better. I think that there's a lot of power in that when people see a functioning picture of what health looks like, that's really convicting to other people.
Yeah. Man, I can tell you in the corporate world, to your point, back to take it to the person, man, you sit around, you want to ruin trust quickly, and this happens a lot, is there is something that's festering within an office setting, and there's something wrong, and someone's not saying anything except for the person at the water cooler. And then that rumor mill gets passed to the other parts of the office, and the leader's just standing there like, I didn't even know, because they were never even brought into the fold. So, man, you've got to get that courage to just do it, and I think you'll feel better afterwards. I think you really will. I think you'll feel like you are moving forward instead of just being stuck.
Yeah,
I think that being a good team player, which I was really guilty of, and sometimes still am, but is this role of being a critic or cynical. And so we think that we're being helpful, right? You sit in a meeting and you pick out all the things that your leader's presenting that isn't going to work and why it's not going to work. And that's my way of contributing positively, to the team, when really it doesn't. It kind of like kills the morale in the room and all of the creativity. I have been called a wet blanket in the past, but I'd like to say it's now a dry blanket as much as it can be. And I just help make everyone have warm fuzzies. So I think that sometimes when our team is not healthy, we think that is the way to make it healthy, right? Like, if I point out all the bad things, then people will see that and they'll want to improve it. And that's not the best way. So if you can remove that cynicism from your own self, I think leaders can really see that, and it becomes helpful to the team as a whole.
That's good.
Good. Hey, let me ask this. We've only got just a couple minutes left. And Heather, I'm going to start with you. And then if you guys all want to chime in something else. We started this whole series saying, hey, the number one job of a leader should be to develop the trust within their team. That should be their primary focus. And what we've attempted to proclaim throughout all these is it's worth it. It's worth it. You go, well, what's the return on investment? Listen, trust us. It's worth it. And so we kind of want to give a last call for that. And so, Heather, if you'll start us off, and then if anyone else wants to jump in, what encouragement would you give to someone else to make their leadership focus on developing trust? Why is it worth it?
We were super unhealthy before we started this process. And I mentioned in a previous episode, we didn't even know we were unhealthy at the time. But once we figured out what was going wrong, and could make those changes, it made it so much more fun to come to work. I used to dread coming into the office, and I love the people in these squares, but I hated it. Like, I didn't know what I was going to get from anyone. Where did I drop the ball? Who is going to yell at me? I would spend time on Pinterest or looking for other jobs. But since we've done all that work, I can't wait to get here. Like, I'm usually the first one to the office, and it's exciting because I never know what's next. I don't want to take a vacation because I'll miss something because we make decisions so quickly. It's exciting. I love that I get to be a part of something bigger than just me now. And it feels like that.
That's awesome.
I do not share the sentiment of not wanting to take vacation, but I will echo that it has, it just makes it like a better work environment. And I think not only does that impact then like psychologically how you feel when you're coming into the space, but it also impacts your productivity. You know, like we get so much more done now because we have trust between one another. But I think even deeper than that, like the encouragement that I would give is just like, hey, this is just the right way to treat people, right? Like, if nothing else, like everybody wants to work in an environment where there is trust. And that's just showing like the honor and respect that other people deserve.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's good.
I think notoriously church work is known for being slow. And when you have trust on your team, you can get things done so much faster. And so trust is that foundation that allows everything else to go quickly. Even in the church world, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that trust allows us to see things more objectively and less emotionally charged. And like, you know, emotions are a great thing, but you know, when there's not trust in the workplace, that can go haywire and you can misinterpret everything that somebody else is doing. So, you know, when we get out, when we trust those around us, we can really say, hey, what's working, what's not working. We can add the things we need to add because we know it's beneficial. We can take away the things that we know are not beneficial because we all recognize, we all see this as either working or not working. And it allows us to do so much more as an organization.
That's awesome. Well, hey, Kevin, let's wrap up this episode here. Is there something you want someone to leave with?
Yeah, so as we walk away within this whole series and this focus on developing trust, man, I want you to see this to go, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's hard. It's messy. It's not a straight process within there. It's not like, oh, we clearly move forward, because it's a bunch of messy conversations and conflicts called interactions. But the thing at the end of the day, and I think this came out in the second episode we recorded in this series, is we talked about like in all the activity and all the code and everything else, it's a value on people. And so I go, when I look at our team, when I look at the people who are in these squares with me right now on our Zoom call, I go, like, this is second family for me. Like, it is. Like, these are people who I expect to have relationships with that extends well beyond however long we work together. And that worth it. That at the end of the day, even if it didn't increase speed or productivity or personal development or anything else, that makes it worth it.
That's great. Well, hey, man, that was just a fantastic trust series. And right now, if you're listening, this is something that I don't know that is a thing, but I'm going to make it one. This is called a Zoom selfie. So if you're not following us on social media, there's a plug for us. You will get a couple of Zoom selfie photos that you can see the last of this series. It's been fun. Thank you for joining us. Episode 43, Trust the Process. If you're new to the podcast or haven't yet subscribed, it would mean the world to us if you did that right now. Also, post about it, rate and review, or both. You won't believe how that helps us get this podcast in the hands of so many more leaders like you. And again, this is the last time, but it's so important. And we want to thank Dusty and Alyssa and Keisha and Heather. Man, their ministries are busy, they're purposeful, and they took time out of their day to join us today. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this. It really made it a special series and a special time with you guys. Thank you so much. And we love hearing your stories of how the podcast is working in your life and business. If you have a story, visit leadinghope.online. Send that to us. We want to hear from you. And remember, everyone has 20 minutes to learn to become a better leader. Make it count.